So we are live. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show, a show where we bring you champion people with extraordinary stories. People who really want to share, a knowledge and help us to, to be positive and create positivity into our life and understand that, we are in control and we always have the possibility to change the course of our life. So today we're going to Canada and we have somebody with a lot of energy and I think we're gonna feel it on the platform today. So don't go anywhere. I hope you have your notepads and you have you have your pens as well because there's gonna be a lot of fun learning today and a lot of good interaction and positive interaction, I think. And I know that this show is going to lift you up wherever you are, and it's going to help you to look at things differently, especially now, with this what we have, with the pandemic and people being really pessimistic in, and toward everything that we have, to go through. So, just to give you a little bit of, to tell you a little bit about our guest today. So our guest is Dai Manuel. He is based in Canada and is a certified lifestyle mentor and executive performance coach. So he's going to explain to us what it's all about. And I'm very curious to know what it does to help us, and mentor people to have a better lifestyle. So he's an award-winning digital thought leader, an author, and a keynote speaker, international speaker, and he's been a former partner and chief, operating officer. So his work in corporate, but his life right now is completely different. So we'll ask him, a little bit more detail on that. And he has a model that he bases his work on, and this model is based on what he calls the 5F, and we'll hear about the 5F surely today. And he's a super dad. He's he's a super dad, and he's dating his wife, which is an interesting things to say, but that's really amazing, and is trying to lead by example and really help us to understand that and that life is it's very important. We have to live life to the fullest and have fun in the process. So without going further, because he's gonna come and introduce himself, let's start. And please let us know where you're watching from, and really participate, ask questions, because we are bringing those champions and those thought leaders for you, and for you to learn, but also for you to see what's possible to have a positive impact in your life. And for those who don't know me, my name is Mireille Tulekima. I'm your host today, and I'm delighted to have this conversation with Dai today. So let's start the conversation, and don't go anywhere. We are coming back.
But as I got older, I started to be more aware of some of the abusive sides of
Hello, hello, hello. How are you? How are you doing? Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And I can see the energy. I can see you bubbling, from Canada. And that's amazing. So, before we start to get crazy, please let us know who you are, who is they, and what's your story in a way.
Sheesh, that's a loaded question. It's, whenever I'm asked, what's your story? I realize that I don't have just one. Like we're all living multiple stories. From the standpoint that a story begins, there's a lot of meat in between, and then we have an ending, right? So I often think about the different milestones I've come to, the challenges, especially in my life, that have challenged me the most. Because when you sort of endure these challenges, which we're all enduring, we're all on this hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell says, and we're just seeking our bliss. We're seeking the path that allows us to maximize our sense of joy, our sense of happiness, our sense of fulfillment. That sense of purpose, that reason we get up in the morning. We're all seeking that. And especially now during the last 6 months, I think a lot of us have felt very challenged just based on the global pandemic we find ourselves sitting within and wondering our place in this. And so, every time I've endured a big challenge, a life transforming challenge, I feel like I've had to evolve into somebody different. And I think we'll all acknowledge that when we've gone through big challenges and we've come out the other side, as hard as it was when we were going through it, we get out on the other side and we can take a second to sort of reflect and turn around and look at the steps that we just walked to get where we are, and we realize, wow, that was hard. But now that I'm here on the other side, it doesn't seem as bad as it was when I was in it. And I think that is that perspective we're always seeking, is to remember that, as Buddha said, this too shall pass. And, he wasn't just talking about the bad things in life. He's also talking about the good things. And so it's bringing our mindfulness and awareness back to ourselves right in the moment. And so right now, in this very moment, having this conversation with you, I'm very excited because, my story's changed a lot over the years. And I'm someone that loves to help people with transformations, as I've experienced that several times in my own life, whether it be with morbid obesity as a child to overcoming substance abuse. I really used to abuse alcohol and sometimes some narcotics along with that. And it's been over 10 years since I've had that stuff. And, my life's had lots of shifts. And so when you ask me that question, what's your story? I'm like, well, which story do you want?
Exactly. And you can choose, because that's also, that's also a strategy. You can choose the story that you want to tell yourself, because that's also the thing. So, you're talking about having, several lives, but, you've obviously went through some key challenges, and you talked about, obesity when you were young, and also, the stress and going to substance abuse. So how did you get, out of it? And then what are the tools and strategies that you've actually used to go over it and to make sure that, you don't get stuck in those challenges?
Well, thanks for asking that, especially in that way, because, when we're dealing with the challenges, a lot of times it feels like, I hate to equate it to drowning, but it almost feels like that at times, right? It feels very overwhelming. It feels almost like a shortness of breath, like the world is closing in on us at times, especially when it's something that really, really puts us way outside of our comfort zones. And sometimes when we feel that sensation of fear, especially because there's the fear of the unknown. It's like, this is a new situation. I don't know if I can handle this. And we have a lot of beliefs that limit us, especially in how we deal with certain situations. And that often comes through experience, through education, through role modeling, the association that we have. And I wish I knew this when I was younger, because I would have made choices. I wouldn't have fought change so much. And I think that is the key piece I wanted to sort of start with is, change is inevitable. Like really, like if I was to ask anybody, what is one thing that you know to be absolutely true? The only thing I can really say and say fully that I know to be absolutely true is the fact that nothing seems to stay the same. Like everything's constantly changing. Always, always. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
science will prove this. Buddha talked about it 2,500 years ago, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everything's sort of in flux. And
Mm-hmm.
when we start to realize that, and we start to fight it, don't necessarily fight change,
Mm-hmm.
but start to be more proactive in change itself. Think of it more as a state that we're constantly in, and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that some of our choices that we make and the actions
Mm-hmm.
that we follow up the choices with have a direct impact not only on right now, but also on the days to come. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I didn't really grasp, especially when I was younger. At age 9, I was, well, my parents were going through a separation, eventually divorced. They both eventually remarried, but at 9 years old, I didn't really understand what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it was hard, right? Like I'd been living life a certain way, and as a child, you feel very safe. Your world feels very consistent, and you have a lot of confidence that you wake up tomorrow, it's going to be just like it was today. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, that which you believe to be true, the opposite happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as much as you try to expect that, and to date myself here, I'm 43 now, and back then, that many years ago, divorce
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden, my parents both working full time, it left my brother and I a lot more time together, but also alone. And I started to console myself. A lot of my stress, a lot of my anxiety, a lot of those emotions I started to deal with through food
Mm-hmm.
and video games and movies. And so I had a very inactive lifestyle. And I was also eating a lot of foods that were nutrition poor. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lots of calories,
Nutrition for I
but
like
not
it.
very much. Yeah, not much nutrition value, but high in calories, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and we all know what happens. Like I don't need to be, a doctor to
Mm-hmm.
prove this point, but we all, I think there's enough general information out there and understanding that if you eat that way and you don't move very much and you do that repetitively day after day, month after month,
Mm-hmm.
year after year, we know the repercussions. And for
Mm-hmm.
myself, over a 5-year period until the age of 14, I just kept growing outward, not upward, right? And I got to a point where a doctor literally told my mom at a checkup that, your son's got asthma now because of the obesity. I also
Mm-hmm.
was dealing with a lot of inflammatory issues, and so my joints
Mm-hmm.
were quite sore and achy, and I'd be out of breath walking up a flight of stairs, let alone trying to tie my shoes. And I remember hearing, your son he's morbidly obese. And
Mm-hmm.
I had no understanding of what that meant. I was 14. I was like, what does the word obese mean?
Yes.
Morbid. What does that
Yeah.
mean? I didn't really put two and two together. And back then as well, childhood and obesity weren't typically two words you'd find in the same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like nowadays it's a global issue.
Mm-hmm.
But back then there was me and one other kid in our school that was in that state of unhealth. So
Mm-hmm.
I was already feeling very isolated,
Mm-hmm.
and based on that isolation was depressed, is withdrawn, and to try to find photos of me back then, like I'm very grateful I didn't live in a time that we do now where everyone has a nice camera on their hip,
Mm-hmm.
because there's really very few images of me as that age, because I used to be very withdrawn. I would avoid social situations, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually got to a point though where the ideas of suicide would start to fill my mind, and that self-worth, that value, I felt
Mm-hmm.
zero for myself. And uh, every time I would see myself, especially in my
Mm-hmm.
reflection, I would feel that this animosity, this depression, this I would go as far as to say hatred,
Mm-hmm.
self-hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if those that are listening to this or watching this, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had those moments where you just really don't like who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard place to be. It's so extremely challenging. And you can imagine me at the age of 14 not
Mm-hmm.
having my full psychology developed, my emotional health developed. I just was lacking in a lot of areas. And so to
Mm-hmm.
try to navigate that with the experiences I had to that point, which were very limited, it was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day at my dad's place and coming out of the shower, and he was rushing me. Normally I had this hack, I
Mm-hmm.
could get in the shower, I'd turn the steam up, the heat really hot, because the more condensation I could build in the bathroom, I knew that when I got out of the shower, the mirror would be all fogged over.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have to see myself. It was like, oh, okay, well, this is good. I can get in and out of the shower, not have to look at my reflection. So in a way, I was just avoiding the issue,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and avoiding really owning my current state, my state of
Yeah.
health, my state of being, like owning the fact that, no one got me there except for me.
Mm-hmm.
And because up to that point, I was very good at blaming others for my situation. I blame the food that my parents buy. I blame the fact that, because they both work, I wouldn't have time to play sports, or, just any excuse I could think of. And but this one morning, being rushed out of the shower because we had some place to go. I don't even remember where we were going that day. That's probably not that significant anymore. But regardless, getting out of the mirror and looking at myself in the mirror, I remember just locking eyes and doing the scan, looking down, walking in on my very large stomach at the time and starting to come back up and just locking eyes with myself, like really looking at myself and just feeling all these negative emotions come up. And then I started to sob uncontrollably, like just broke down, the ugly crying, the one that's like you can barely breathe, and it's just not a pretty place to be. And I remember just pulling it together and saying, you know what, enough's enough. I can't live like this anymore. And to be honest with you, the idea of death scared me. It scared me a lot. And in fact, it was more scary than the idea of living a life where I decided to make changes. And just to make this really clear for everybody, because I think you'll all relate to this one thing. I got to a point in my life where the fear of change was less intimidating than the fear of staying as I was. So, if we think about our life, we're always facing choices. And just to use sort of a metaphor, that we've heard this a lot of times, we're on a journey, right? We're on this journey called life. And we come to forks in the road all the time where we can go left or right. This is a very defining moment in my life where I decided to go right, even though I didn't really know the direction I was going. But I knew that if I went left and kept doing the things I was doing right then and there, eating the way I was, not exercising, not doing anything to build myself personally, that life wasn't going to get any better. Meanwhile, here was the other path, the path that I knew nothing about, but I knew that if I went down this path, it was the only path that would allow me to create change in my life. And so I went for it. And I told my kids, and they laugh at this, but I was like, I went to the library, I got books out on fitness and nutrition, and I started to educate myself. My parents bought me a mountain bike, and I just started to move my body every day. I started to eat a little bit differently. I started to look at food as a way to thrive, not simply as a mechanism to survive. And over time, 20 months, I eventually lost the weight, but I also put on some muscle mass and started to grow differently, and started to gain some confidence and started to fill my mind with more positive ideas, read certain types of books, listen to certain types of tapes back then, and really start working on my holistic health. And, so by the time I reached age 18, the person I was before, well, he died. In fact, I would like to think that I killed him. I made a very proactive...
You have to kill the person, otherwise it comes back and hunt you.
It's like my clients that I coach on nutrition or fitness, right, or making these physical changes. I'm like, as soon as you release the weight, and as soon as it's off your body, it's no longer a piece of you. You got to get rid of those clothes. Like, you just got to get rid of them, because you're never letting that back in your life. You just got to get rid of the clothes. It's funny. Some people will keep the clothes because they're so used to losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. And so there's this fear of giving up the clothing because then they're worried that they're not going to fit the ones that they now fit into. And I'm like, no, just get rid of the plan B. There is no plan B. There's only you right now as you are, living the life that you're choosing to live at its fullest, and making certain decisions that allow you to live your best life now. And so long and short of it, I went through a very enlightening, to use that word. I felt very enlightened after the fact, because I had achieved change in my life. There was people and mentors that had supported me during that period of time. But then all of a sudden, people, especially like friends of my parents, friends of my friends, friends at school, they started to take note of this change that I experienced. And all of a sudden, people started asking me questions to help them. And this is the first time in my life that people asked questions of me and actually paused and waited for me to respond, which was a new experience for me. You know,
That
people
was
asking
powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is very powerful. And all of a sudden I realized I can help others now go through similar transformations that I've personally experienced, because I have this knowledge now of what it takes, what you can do, the certain actual aspects and steps you can do. And it was a very unique feeling, because it was the first time I'd experienced that in my life. But also I realized I love helping others. Like I felt this responsibility, because now I learned how to do this myself, and everything just changed so dramatically and so positively. I wanted to help others experience that. And so literally since the time I was 18 to now, 43, 25 years later, I've been supporting people in many different fashions, through coaching and mentorship and training and online and offline and everything in between. And I absolutely love it. I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And all I can wish on every single person out there is trust in you, that at any time you want to make a change, you simply have to choose to make a change, and then start living into that. And I'll give you some simple steps or some questions to ask yourself in a second, but I just want everyone to know that change is always possible, because it's happening whether we like it or not. So we can either fight it, or, as the cliche goes, you know,
and that's the
flow.
key thing, you know, change is permanent. So we choose to follow it, or we choose to go against it, but you know, it's there. We have to respond. We can't just stay still. So let's just have a break to see who we have here. So we have Liliane. She's watching from Germany. We have Raymond watching from New York. And then we also have Rosemary. I think Rosemary is in Canada. So I can't remember where in Canada. And we have also Leah. Leah is watching from Germany as well. So we have really, you know, a good mix of people watching and trying to, you know, to understand and trying to feel your energy. And I think that's what, you know, to get the secret of this energy that you have. And that's actually, you know, bubbling through the platform. So let's have just a small break, and then we'll come back and continue this boiling conversation. Let's have this break and come back. So we are back. We are back with energetic Dai, and you know, we really, you know, starting to warm up a little bit. And my question, because I read, you know, through your bio, and you know, you are on a mission to, you know, to impact people positively and make sure that they live their life to the fullest. So how do you do it? And any strategy, plan, process that you can share with us, because we really want to be those people, you know, those people who really gotta live this life to the fullest and contaminate people around us.
Well, thanks for asking that. You know, it is a choice. It's always a choice. You know, I can choose to be glum and gloom and sad, and I can.
Mhm.
Or, I can shift my biology in a way
Mhm.
that especially starts with the psychology,
Mhm.
shift the mindset, and then we can influence the body to follow suit. And
Mhm.
if you're familiar with a doctor by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about this,
Mhm.
or maybe you've heard of Tony Robbins. He
Mhm.
talks about this too. So it's not a secret that we can literally choose and think our
Mhm.
way to being happier. I know it sounds
Mhm.
rather weird, but it's where it starts, right?
Mhm.
It's like I ask you to close your eyes and I say, okay, reach into your. Okay, let's just play a game real quick.
Mhm.
Just to prove a point. Those that are listening to this, close your eyes.
Mhm.
Okay, you got your eyes closed. You're in your kitchen in your home. You've got a cutting board on the counter, and you go to your fridge. You go to the crisper. You pull out a lemon. And if you don't keep your lemons in the fridge, oh well, it's a Canadian thing. So you pull your lemons out, and now you have this lemon in your hand. It's beautiful. It's yellow golden. It's like you've got the sun in the hand, palm of your hand. Now you take it over to the cutting board. You pull a knife out. You cut that lemon in half. You pull that lemon up to your nose. You've got it. The juices are just flowing down the side, running down your hand, down your wrist. Give it a smell. Lemony. Oh, are you tempted? Okay, ready? You're going to take this big, juicy, beautiful lemon and stick it in your mouth and bite into it. Slurping. Oh, can you envision that? How's that taste? Now, I imagine that some of you, if you're really getting into this and you're envisioning this lemon in your hand, you started to salivate. You started to maybe even squint your eyes or your face, grimace a little bit as you are preparing for the sourness of the lemon. It's powerful. This visualization that you're doing is actually creating a physiological response. You were just envisioning, just pretending to have this juicy citrus fruit in your hand and put it to your lips and taste it. And it created this physical response. That is the power of visualization at the basics. Okay. And obviously we can go into this much deeper, but it's a limited time today. But I want you to realize that your mind is such a beautiful muscle, and it's one that we should flex all the time. It's the muscle between the ears. And very often it's the one we don't condition as frequently, especially when we're younger, we're learning. But then we get to a certain point in life where we start to just continue to do the things that we've always done, expecting things to stay the same. And we don't challenge ourselves to learn and to grow. And yet we encounter challenges because as we age, things change. We become more aware of that. I have a couple of kids, 15 and 17-year-olds, and I'll tell you, every day they remind me that change is happening, whether I like it or not. And so that's what I'd like you to start with, is realize that within you is the power to visualize some of the changes. And then we got to follow it up. But happiness is a choice. Bronnie Ware wrote a beautiful book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she talks about these individuals that are at end of life. And she had a conversation with them as their care aide, as their nurse, as their person that was tending to them at that end of life period. And she had these conversations, wonderful bedside manner as a medical professional, and something that I always envision and hope that if I reach that point in my life, that I also have someone that cares that much for me and my well-being at the end of life. And she found that there was 5 regrets that almost every single person had. So you envision this, you're at your end of life and you're asked a question, is there anything that you regret not doing in your life? And imagine you keep hearing the same 5 responses happening over and over again. What would you do if you knew what those 5 things were well ahead of time? Well, I'll tell you, when I first learned of these, it impacted me greatly. The one of which that really stands out to me is I wish I'd allowed myself to be happier. So think about that. You're at your end of life and your one regret that you just really can't help but constantly think is, I really wish I allowed myself to be happier. This implies that happiness is a choice, which I truly believe it is. And so it all starts with us choosing that I want to be happier. I deserve to be happier. And then following through with the steps to live a life that allows us to fulfill ourselves, as well as connect with our happiness and our joy. So from there, that is sort of that power of the mind, that influence of choice in our lives. And being proactive in it. And so when it comes down to change, it's always happening. And there's a series of 3 questions I think every single person should have written down somewhere, or at least put to memory. Because if you go through these 3 questions, whenever you're encountering a difficult or challenging time where change is involved, these 3 questions will help you stay grounded, will help you find clarity. And in clarity, we gain confidence. And through confidence, we can take action. Not being fearful of the typical repercussions which come from the fear of the unknown, right? Like when we're afraid of the unknown, that fear is a very intimidating component that prevents us from taking action a lot of the time. So this is our way of starting to rationalize, right? Rationalize away fear, at least to the best of our ability, to minimize it. It doesn't ever go away. It's always there. It's a survival mechanism, you know, but we learn how to work with it. And not let it limit us. And would you like to hear what those 3 questions are? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah? Okay.
I'm eager to hear about those 3 questions.
Well, the first one, okay, you got a big change you're ready to make. And this is one that you're probably thinking, or maybe you're subconsciously thinking, you're not fully aware of. And the first question is, can I do this? Can I do this? You know, a simple question. Can I do this? And when you ask yourself, can I do this? Meaning, let's just use weight release or weight loss as an example. Let's say we want to release 20 pounds of excess body fat off of our body. Can I do this? Can I lose 20 pounds? Well, geez, I don't know. I've never really had that. You know, like I'm just being justifying. So let's just play this out as an example. Let's pretend you're someone who's never been successful at losing weight. So now you're telling yourself, oh, well, I've never lost weight before. Can I do this? Well, I don't know if I can do this. Well, what do we do when we're unsure of an end result by taking a certain action? The cool thing is we have something called the internet, called Google. And for those that don't have access to the internet, there's the libraries like I've used in the past. But we can go and we can start to seek out those that have already experienced results in their life similar to the ones that we want to achieve for ourselves. So it's a matter of education. So when you say, can I do this? Maybe right now, as the person you are right now with your amount of knowledge and experiences to this point in time, maybe you don't have all the answers and you're not sure how to do it. But I know you're capable of learning how to do things. So this is the education component. This is a matter of educating yourself, seeking out proof of other people's success. And this is the cool thing. We can find lots of great success stories, motivational stories, inspiring stories, educational stories, combinations of all of that. So when you finally get to that point where you can say, can I lose 20 pounds? Well, yeah, so-and-so lost 20, they lost 20. Geez, there's lots of programs out there to support me to lose 20. Well, I think I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Great. So now you've answered question 1. You've got a yes, right? Okay, so you're starting to shift. You're starting to gain a little bit of confidence now, gain a bit of clarity. Number 2, if I do this, will it work? Right? So if I choose to start to live some of the changes, you know, I've now educated myself on some of the steps that are required to make the change. I'm confident that I can do these steps. Now, if I do these steps, will it work? So back to the example of 20 pounds being released. So you're thinking, geez, if I commit to, say, moving my body more regularly, if I commit to learning how to nourish myself and develop a healthier relationship with the foods that I eat. So now I'm constantly feeling energetic. When I eat, I don't feel like I need a nap. I don't feel like I need a sugary treat a couple hours later to bring my energy back up. I don't feel like I'm dozing off at work after a big meal. You start to learn and adapt and evolve into a different person that can follow through on those little steps, those little changes. Because if you do those changes, will it work? Well, you eventually get to a point where you're like, yeah, I know it will work. I know if I make these changes and I do things differently than I've done before, I can expect different results than I've gotten before. So you get a second yes. And now you've got yes and yes. Now's the third question. Because again, you're gaining confidence, you're gaining clarity, right? And with that comes a much greater self-awareness and self-confidence that, yes, if you do these things, change will start to happen. And change is contagious, you know, in a positive way. When we start to experience changes, we start to get excited. We're like, wow, this is happening. I'm doing this. So question number 3 comes up. Is it worth it? Is the change worth it? I'm going to ask you. Because if you're a group or you're an organization, it makes sense to keep it broad like that. Is it worth it? But when we're talking about you, specifically as an individual, wanting to make these changes, such as, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds of fat. Am I worth it? That's how I want you to ask question 3. Am I worth it? Now that is not an easy question to answer, is it? When was the last time you asked yourself that? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said, am I worth it? Because I know you're worth it, but do you know you're worth it? That question takes a little bit more time to dive into, to develop, to introspect, right? To look within yourself and find those qualities, those values that you love about yourself. And if you're not aware of that, trust me, there's people in your life that do. And having a conversation with them to reassure, to educate you, to make you more aware of some of these qualities that maybe right now at this given point in time, based on dealing with some challenges, it feels like there's some filters up preventing you of seeing that. So when you get to that point of saying, am I worth the change? Yes. The answer has to be yes. From the heart, right? From here up to here, back again. It's got to be a whole body commitment. Is it worth it? So those are the 3 real simple questions, simple in design, but doesn't mean it's easy to really sit with and ask ourselves. But
Exactly.
if you go back to any big changes in your life, I bet you the nuances of those questions at some point in time were addressed by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a 4th question, which is, I usually encourage people to think about, but it is, who do I need to get around to support me with this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where, finding community of people that want similar things or have had experiences that are similar to the ones that we want to experience. And we learn from them through mentorship, through coaching, through relationships and connectivity. And we're very fortunate that we live in a day and age where we can be very connected online, and there's still opportunity to empathize and connect and socialize, and we're not limited. Even though we're limited in the in-person, we have the means to start down this path. So those are the simple questions to facilitate change in your own life, or at least gain the clarity and the confidence that may be needed to initiate the change, to get it started. And that's often the hardest part, is just getting started.
Exactly. And I mean, like you said, those are really simple questions that, we can ask ourselves, but yet, it's actually helping us to go through the process. And then, first, can I do it? Can I do this? And then start to understand, what I need to be able to do it, get educated, get the information, and how we got to react to all of this. So that's a simple process, because if information is available, either you look for it, or you can have people around you that can help you with the information. And then then the second question that you said we should ask ourselves is, will it work? And that's another level, and I think that's more confidence level than anything, because you need to really get out of your comfort zone and make sure that you do it, and then understand if it's gonna work, and then is it worth it for you. And the next question is to have people around you, because that's also a key factor. Because if you're not in the right environment, and you're not in the right setting, and you don't have people encouraging you as well, it can be, yes, you now strong, you have the self-esteem, but it can also bring you back where you started. And that's important to have those people cheering you and encouraging you to go to the next level. So very, very, I like the process. I really like the process, because it's really simple. And sometimes we tend to look, we want something very complicated, but that's just 4 simple questions that we ask ourselves, and that's it. So so you basically went through that yourself, when you had to to challenge yourself, in not only when when you were 18, and then 14 and 8, from 14 to 18, you went through this full process before being able to start to live this fun life that you have. And it's really, so I mean, obviously you have all those tools as well, but then I've read that you also have principle, and those 5 F that
5S, yeah.
you're living through. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I can see that you have a very a typical life is
Well,
so
like any of us, if any of us lived a straight line, I don't
yeah.
think so. I think it's
No.
like life is very different. But and I went through a period of time where I just felt like life was happening to me. I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I was actually being very proactive in my life. You
Mhm.
get sort of into that repetitive action of day in, day out, or as that great Bill Murray movie called Groundhog's
Mhm.
Day. I don't know if people remember that one, but where he's caught in this loop of living the same day over and over and
Mhm.
over again, and he doesn't break the loop till he lives a perfect day, or what
Mhm.
is considered his perfect day, and
Mhm.
and I'm not seeking perfection. Meanwhile, I used to in my 20s and even into my 30s, I used to be shooting for perfection, but shooting for my idea of success.
Mhm.
And a lot of this was just based on my own expectations for myself and believing that
Mhm.
that's what I would need to have respect, what I would ultimately need to have love from
Mhm.
others, to have that attention and that validation. And realizing that very early on that a lot of that stemmed from me as that morbidly obese teen.
Mhm.
And I only bring this up because I want to let people know, like, I wasn't fully developed psychologically and emotionally,
Mhm.
especially as that teenager. And so I made all these physical changes. I really got really, really good at changing the external.
Mhm.
Right. I became like a general contractor that could resurface things very well. but as far as doing the internal work, I
Mhm.
didn't even think about that. I was
Yeah.
changing my mindset based on some of the fitness stuff I was reading, some of the fitness
Mhm.
stuff I was listening to, and some of the people I was getting around. So the mindset was starting to get uh, influenced in a
Mhm.
positive way. But I never took a proactive effort to really start to reflect inward and ask myself some of the tough questions like,
Mhm.
why am I here? What is my purpose? Right. And that's
Mhm.
a big question. Mark Twain says, there's two very important days in our life. The first one is the day we're born. The
Mhm.
second one is the day we figure out why. And
Mhm.
that's not an easy one to come to.
Mhm.
At the
Mhm.
very beginning, I told you about Joseph Campbell and this hero's journey we're all on, and this idea of trying to follow our bliss and figure out, well, what is going to allow me to feel most fulfilled. And
Mhm.
uh, eventually I got to a point in my life because the biggest change happened for me just over 10 years ago when I stopped drinking,
Okay.
and started. That was a very hard period in my life,
Mhm.
just because I learned to deal with stress and anxiety and overwhelm with alcohol.
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
the easy way to offset that. And really, it was just I was escaping it for a
Mhm.
momentary period of time. For those hours when I was drinking, I didn't have to think about life. I didn't have to think about the stresses. I didn't have to think about my responsibilities.
Mhm.
And that became a habit. It was just a habit. And, you repeat that habit for a long period of time, and it starts to influence us in lots of other ways that maybe we weren't anticipating at first. And what I mean by that is, I started to not take my own fitness as seriously. I
Mhm.
started to not be as present for my family. I started to make mistakes in my career.
Mhm.
I started to see how the rest of my life was being negatively impacted by that simple value, me valuing alcohol over
Mhm.
everything else in my life.
Mhm.
It was simply a value. I was valuing that over everything else.
Mhm.
And really, when I got honest with myself, was why am I doing this? I don't value alcohol more. I know I'm not that person. But
Mhm.
it took my wife asking me a very specific question on a day just over 10 years ago where she sat me down. And I thought this is the talk about us separating because I
Mhm.
knew it was getting to that point. I had made lots of mistakes based
Mhm.
on the decisions and choices I was making to that point. And I wasn't providing an environment that I think uh, was conducive to raising healthy,
Mhm.
holistically healthy family and kids
Mhm.
especially. And I wasn't being that person of support for my wife either. And uh, I was living out of integrity. And we'll come
Mhm.
back to this. I'm leading up to the core value question here because this is
Okay.
this is sort of the context to that question you asked. Because I want to
Mhm.
give some
Mhm.
context because things changed very quickly, but only
Mhm.
because I chose to make some very drastic changes very quickly.
Mhm.
And my wife sat me down and we started the conversation towards what life may look like when we separate. And I realized that was not what I wanted. I
Mhm.
didn't want to be that guy. I didn't, because I already knew this is the path I'm on. Whoa, if
Mhm.
we're not together, I don't see things getting much better. I actually see things getting worse if I don't have my family there because they were that rock, that thing that I did value. I said family was the most important thing in my life. Meanwhile, at times I wasn't living that. I was choosing to have some drinks, choosing to stay out late with some guys after work, not being very respectful and not being that person that I believe myself to be, which created its own stress and anxiety because I was living out of integrity.
Yeah.
And so this is a really hard place to realize where you're at, because this is where things can get really dark really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like someone's holding up a mirror and we're like forced to look at ourselves and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look at myself. Like how I was when I was 14 and overweight. I did not want to see myself in the mirror. But then when I did, and I really looked hard, I realized this is where I am right now. I became very aware of the present moment. And I owned the fact that every day before that, every decision, every action that I'd made brought me to that moment. That's on me. No one drove me there. I got there, you know? And she asked me one question. And for anyone that's parents out there, or soon to be parents, or will be parents, you're going to like this question. Lock this one into your mind. My wife looked me in the eye and said, Dai, are you being the type of man that you would want to marry your daughters? Boom. Am I being the type of man that I would want to marry my daughter? I was not being that guy. In fact, if a guy like me at that time, who I was before, showed up on my doorstep and said, hey, we'd like to meet your daughters or date or potentially wed, I wouldn't let them in. There's no way. I'd be like, no. But that's who I was. That's who I was being. So when we think about role modeling in our kids, you know, my kids at the time were 6 and 4 years old. 2 little girls that thought the most of their dad. They never saw any or thought any ill of me. You know, I was their hero, but I didn't feel like their hero. You know, I didn't feel like I was living a heroic life, a life that I would be happy or proud of them emulating. And that was a hard place to be. And it was at that moment I made a decision. I would go 1 year without drinking. 1 year. And I sat them all down on the couch. I said, I'm making this commitment, not just for you, but especially for myself. I want this change for me because I know I do have more potential in me. I know I can do this. Alcohol is not something that I value. I value you guys. I value myself more than the drinking. And so what started as a 1 year commitment was awesome. You know, I learned a lot of new things, but I took away the crutch. So remember I told you before, I was using alcohol as a way to escape stress and anxiety, to deal with that stuff. But it was literally a crutch helping me walk. And you all of a sudden take away the crutches, what happens? Well, I'm left limping. And I got to figure out, well, how do I rehab this foot?
How to walk again. Yeah.
You got to figure out how to walk again. And so this is where all of a sudden now, at that age, you know, at the time I was 32, I realized that I need some help. I need to surround myself with people that will support me. People that I would like to be mentored by, or role models that I would like to emulate, because I realized the association I had at that time were not sharing the same values as me. And I realized that it too was a crutch. And I like to let people know, because this happens often. Those questions I shared with you earlier, I know there's people out there thinking, well, that's great, but I don't think my family will support me with this. I've tried to lose weight, but they don't change the way they eat. Listen, don't worry about them, worry about you. But if you are concerned about association and you can't change the people around you, just change the people around you. Okay, so if you can't change them, just change them. You know, change the people you're associating with. And in making that change, it allowed me to again continue with those initial 3 questions and start putting things into place. And I realized I got a counselor, I got a relationship counselor, I started seeing a psychologist. You know, I realized there was some inner work I needed to do. But until I removed the crutch, I didn't really know that, nor was I prepared to start making the daily commitments that were required to start living that life differently again, to get more in alignment with who I believe myself to be. You know, psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, this idea that we have this idea of who we are, and we have who we're actually being. And the further these two things are apart from each other, the way I look at it is it creates a chasm. And that chasm, you can never fill it. And I was looking to try to fill that with, you know, monetary success, believing that would mask everything and make people see me as who I believe myself to be. Meanwhile, I wasn't living it. And it was such a challenge. And so during that period of time, I got really clear on my core values. And so this is leading into the 5S, because I like alliteration. I'm a writer, a speaker, and people remember things if you use alliteration. So I use 5S to really simplify things. And please note, when I share these 5S, these are my guiding core values. You may have similar ones, And if you don't, that's okay. I invite you to explore and start seeking what are your core values. And when I say core values, if you were to ask me 10 years from now what my core values are, I would most likely say the same things. Like these things don't tend to change over time. Because they're right to our core. They're our guiding principles, our internal philosophy that allows us to operate as our best version, if you will. And so my 5S, and we'll use a metaphor as well. Let's think about a house, right? So you've got a house. There's 4 walls. There's a roof. And there's a foundation. So my 4 walls are 4 of the F's: fitness, faith, family, and finances. It's on a foundation of health, and the roof is fun. So you got 5 F's: fun, fitness, faith, family, and finances. But that foundation of health is critical. Because if you don't have your health, and I'm not just talking about physical health, like going to the gym and working out, I'm talking about mental health. I'm talking about psychological health and emotional health, as well as financial health. Being holistically healthy. And I don't mean you have to be prepared to go compete in the Olympics kind of healthy, because that's also very prescriptive and restrictive, right?
Yeah.
Olympians have to train very, very diligently. Their life is compromised drastically to achieve that level of success in their sport. I just want to live a great life. Fortunately for me, living a great life isn't as challenging as winning a gold medal. Anybody can access this, right? But it's understanding what are those value principles. So for me, fitness is very important. I try to move my body every day, every way, just meaning moving my body with purpose. And I invite others to adopt this same philosophy, because now you're not telling yourself, well, I have to go to the gym 5 times a week, or I have to run X amount of miles. It's not about quantifying. It's about qualifying. And so just learning how to let your body move naturally. This can mean going to the pool, throwing the ball around with the kids, going for a walk in the park. Just move and embrace movement, because this will reinforce the foundation of health, right? Fitness is a direct conduit there. I know that if I can affect how people eat, affect how people move, I can also affect their level of health. And that's me as their coach, their mentor, but they can do this themselves too. It's simply an accountability piece when I get involved. So that's fitness. Now we have family, the relationships in your life. So when I say family, I'm referring to all the relationships, and so what are you doing to reinforce that wall of your home? Maybe it's not an F, maybe it's not family, maybe it's something else. That's okay. But for me, it's like family is critical. So living a life that allows me to maintain family as something that's a priority and a focus and a high value is important to me. Finances, well, being financially responsible. We live in a global economy, and unfortunately, we need to earn money to be able to do things, to be able to support some of the things that we want to be able to do, but also those that we care for. So being financially responsible. And very often for people, this isn't a matter of going out and making more money. It's actually just being smarter with the money that we do make. So I just want to repeat that. It's not a matter of going out and finding another job, making a little bit more money. Because I know from most of the people that I've worked with, making more money doesn't mean you have more money.
Exactly,
Okay?
exactly. It's worth remembering that.
Very much. And I'm not a financial guru, but there's lots of great people out there, that can help with this. One of my favorite books I have right here, David Bott, The Latte Factor. Great read, very good. And it's all about this compounding effect of making a little deposit for ourselves every day, some savings even, and getting smarter with how we spend money. So finances is very important. And then we have faith. Now, for some people, that may be denominational. When I'm using the term faith, I'm talking in a non-denominational sense of the word. All right. So my idea of faith is this idea of purpose-driven individuals. For me, it's creating a planet or doing things that are responsible in creating a better experience for everyone than it was when, meaning that when I leave this place, the planet's at least better than when I got here. You know what I mean? So I've added value to humanity, to my friends, to my social connections, to the world. So it's this different sense of responsibility and self-guidance, if you will. And so those are the S, but then fun over top. I mean, if you're not smiling every day, well, you may be doing something wrong, I'm just saying, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I think if you're not smiling every day, there's something that can be changed. And I invite you to explore that, you know? And
So there's
so
a
that's
lot
it.
of people who have
Yeah.
something to change, and that's quite scary when we see that.
Yeah, for sure. But like, this is just an easy way for me to
Hmm.
visualize it. And it's what
Hmm.
I wrote about it in my book, The Whole Life Fitness Manifesto.
Hmm.
There's a little plug, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I talk about this because I want to give people a framework that if they only
Hmm.
had 30 minutes a day, 2% of 24 hours, just 30 minutes.
Hmm. Hmm.
I wanted to create something that was very simple for people to adhere to follow. Because a lot of people, when they're getting started, they just want to know, what do I need to do first?
Exactly.
And how do I do it, right?
Hmm.
The why has to come from within. I ask a lot of great questions, and I provide some very simple worksheets to help
Hmm.
people figure out why is this important to them. And ultimately, hopefully, this is always my intention, is that you get to that point where you say, is it worth it? It's not, is it worth it? Am I worth it? And you say, hell yeah, I'm worth it.
Hmm.
And you're
Hmm.
ready to commit to that lifestyle, to making those daily commitments to yourself. And so this
Hmm.
30 minutes a day is a self-care ritual. It's movement with purpose, mindful meditation, and personal development. So you're
Hmm.
attacking the body, the mind, and spirit with 30 minutes every day. And so it's a self-care ritual. And I give it
Hmm.
away for free on my website. My publisher doesn't like that, but it's right on my website. And I believe I've shared the link, but we can share it again. And
Yeah.
it's very simple. But simple doesn't mean it's easy, because it still involves you making a choice and taking an action every day.
Hmm.
Making a commitment to yourself to improve your body, your mind, your spirit, to
Hmm.
reinforce the little things in life. Because
Hmm.
in reinforcing those little things, it makes the bigger things also get stronger.
Hmm.
And I'm not about making change and making all the changes right away. It's gradual. There's a process. And I think with processes come, again, clarity and confidence.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start to see a little bit of positive momentum and you see things start to change in whatever
Hmm.
area you want to focus on, this itself is reassurance that you are doing the best you can given the situation that you're in, but also now trust that you have the ability to change. And
Hmm.
that's why I'm so excited about the little changes, are the ones I get most excited about. Like,
Hmm.
it just,
Hmm.
like, I have a client, and I celebrate. Hey, he's drinking 2 liters of water a day. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but before that, it was pops. You drink a lot of
Yeah,
soda,
yeah, 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 yeah.
coffee.
Hmm.
Wasn't
Hmm.
actually ever drinking water. It was always water in the liquids,
Hmm.
but,
That's
but
what it
not drinking water, right? And
Yeah.
so just that is a great win.
Hmm.
And because in doing that, he started to feel better. He started to, with hydration comes energy. Our
Hmm.
body can only function properly if it's hydrated. Go a day without water and you'll know exactly what I mean. It's not a happy
Exactly.
place. If you've ever been
No.
dehydrated, ooh, forget about it.
Hmm.
And so just that simple little thing. And even our metabolism. Do you know that we end up burning, without doing anything, on average 70 calories more per day if we're hydrated? So you
Hmm.
compound that over a year, that's 5 or 6
That's a
pounds.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
So
lot.
think about it. You may put on 5 or 6 pounds without even trying to put on 5 or 6 pounds. You're eating as properly as you can. You're moving your body. You're doing all the right things, but you're not hydrated. And that
Hmm.
could cripple your metabolism to as much as 70 calories a day on average. Over a year, that's 5 or 6 pounds of fat that you could have
Yeah.
released just by drinking a little bit more water.
Hmm.
So there's these little tiny habits that make a big impact over a period of time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the
And
nice thing
it's
is,
probably
yeah,
more sustainable as well, instead of changing
yes,
drastically. And that's
yeah,
yeah, that's also one part of the story. Yeah.
exactly. So
Hmm.
these are just some ideas around, ways that you can embrace change, because it really
Hmm.
does come down. I think, it's really, when we feel that change has been forced upon us, I know it's really easy to default to the negative. The woe is
Hmm.
me, poor me, have a pity party, to be a victim. I get
Hmm.
it. What we've experienced in the last 6 months globally, I mean, it's been scary. My business between February and March dropped 80%. 80%.
Yeah.
Trust me, I had a few days there where I was like, oh, I'm
All
like,
of us, I think.
I think we all did. Yes. But I had my family.
Hmm.
We had a roof over our head. We had food in the fridge. We had each other. We had our health. So we were reminding ourselves, well, let's not think about what we've lost. Let's think about what we
Exactly.
have to be grateful for. And so getting to that awareness allowed us to well, remain more optimistic during that period of
Hmm.
hardship, and things have bounced back and they're going the right direction again. And will it stay that way? I don't know. Do I count on it staying that way? Well, heck no, because what do we experience now? And that was just a reminder that change happens, and it's unexpected a lot of the times. But how we react to it is completely on us.
Exactly. So that's powerful. That's very powerful. And like you said, change. You've been saying since the beginning, change always happen. But it's really what we decide and how we react to it. That's the most important, because the change is always there, and we have either to embrace it or to go against it, and and face lots of problem as a result of it. So I mean, it's been an interesting discussion, and I know there's more that you can share as well, and so but we're getting really to the end of the show. Amazing. And one thing that I wanted to ask, what are the key things that you want the audience to stay with, as far as, wellness or, lifestyle is concerned, that you think are key for us to remember and to really focus on?
Well, that's a great question. And I realize, as I'll be a bit generic in my response, but I want to also let people know there's many flavors of this answer, meaning that to each our own. We have to take it upon ourselves a lot of the times to make the changes that we need to make. And as much as we can talk about processes that we can all adhere to, the change is very much a subjective thing. It's a personal thing. Most of the time, we're talking about the individual side, like we are right now. So I want to invite people to adapt and to really accept the idea that change can happen whenever you want it. Meaning that, and again, another metaphor, let's just envision you're on a beach. You draw a line in front of your toes. So now you're looking down at your feet on the beach, nice, and you're squinching your toes in the sand. It feels really nice. You draw that line in front of your toes, and if you look behind you, there's all these footsteps behind you. That is your past. Those are every experience, every choice. You chose to go left, right, left, right, left, right. Whatever speed you chose to run at or walk at or crawl at, either way, everything that you've done to that point in time has got you to that line. And you're towing the line now. And in front of that, notice there's no footprints. There's a clear path. René Descartes, an old philosopher, he called it tabula rasa, this clear slate in front of us. This opportunity is immense because all it is potential. But you have to make a decision to step over that line, and then you get to choose the path that you walk. So right now, in this given moment, is that moment where there's a line in front of your toes. And if you're wanting to do something different, all it takes is one step, and then another, and then another. But the beautiful thing is, I'm not saying forget about the past. I'm saying acknowledge that it happened, but don't let it influence you anymore in what you do now. Right now is a special situation because it's never happened before and it won't happen again. So there's a lot of power there. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his book, The Power of Now, right? And so I invite people to just realize that you are your own facilitator of change, and you can initiate that whenever you want. And if you feel that you can't do it on your own, don't worry. There's people out there that will support you. There's people that will love you and educate you and inspire you and motivate you and help you every step of the way. They're out there, but yet you still have to take it upon yourself to take that first step. And so that's what I want to leave with people. And you take that as you will. Think about that. Think about the biggest change. Just think about one change. One change by making that one thing, that one little habit, introducing one habit to your life. How everything is so interconnected, that one thing will positively affect everything else. For me, it's fitness. If I'm at least getting my movement in every day, I make better decisions when it comes to how I eat. I also make different decisions in how I interact with people. So that one little thing, for me, helps everything else. So I invite those that are listening to this, what is one little thing that by introducing it and repeating that on a regular basis could positively impact everything else in your life? And just do that one thing for now. And that's it. I'm not trying to say do it all. Just do one thing. That's it. That's all. Because you guys got it. You got it. And man, I love hearing these stories. So please reach out to me on social, reach me out. Dai, I heard you on the Greatness Engineering Hour show, I loved what you said about change. Here's the change I'm looking to make. And let's have a conversation. I love talking to people and hearing about what motivates you. My website's got 1,500 articles on it. Lots of content to help you. It's all free. It's all accessible. Just take it. Take it, please.
Yes. And that's the thing. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that you said we are our own facilitator of change. So it
Yes.
all starts with us and it ends with us. So that's the key. And this guy has a lot of energy. So you can connect with him. I think I've managed to summarize where you can connect with him. I hope I didn't miss anything. So there's an email, there's the website, there's the LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I think they're Pinterest, but I didn't put it because I think a lot of people don't use it. So he is everywhere, and I think his first name is quite unique. So I forgot to ask you where it was originally from, because that's the first time you interact with somebody with this first name. So make sure you continue the conversation with Dai, because he has a lot to share, and as he was saying, he likes having conversation, and you saw the energy. It's very contagious. I'm starting to move here, seeing him moving around and really feeling this energy that he brought today. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dai, for being on the Greatness Engineering Hour show and sharing all this knowledge, because it's a very important piece, of knowledge for this period that we are in, with everything that is happening. Understand that we're still in control. Everything starts with us. And if we really want to react in a different way, we have to initiate that. It's not going to come from somebody else or from a different situation. We are in this situation. Change is happening, and we have to decide which way we want to go. Do we want to really follow the change and take the action that's actually going to bring us to the next level, or do we want to stay in the comfort zone and be miserable and complain all the time and be completely depressed? So it's a choice that we have to make, and only us, each one of us, can make this choice. And that's just the reality of things, and it's really it's really important. I see that you had also some free things to share as well.
Yes.
So there's this 28-day World Life Fitness Manifesto program. So that's something that, if you want more information, please connect with Dai. There's also the 5-day sugar detox resource challenge that you're doing as well. So a lot of free gift. This one as well. So there's a gift that you offering as well to the listener. So make sure you reach out, and then you get access to all those free gifts. It's Christmas for us today, because it's Christmas for us today. Lots of gifts from Dai. So don't hesitate to reach out to him. And please, continue the conversation. You're gonna learn so much, and it's gonna be able to help you, especially if you feel like you're challenged in any area. So don't hesitate to reach out to him. So it's been really a nice conversation, and if we could go 2 hours, that would have been fine as well, because I know there's so much that you still have to share. But then I leave it to the audience to reach out personally and get to to the next level as far as this conversation is concerned. So I'm gonna have another show in about an hour as well, but this one will be on a very hard subject, and I'm gonna have 3 amazing ladies with me. So I'm going to have Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is herself a survivor of domestic violence, and she's also, she's looking at the trauma and how to address the trauma of domestic violence. Obviously learning from her own experience. Dr. Selena as well is a survivor of this domestic violence. She went through all kind of domestic violence, and she's also an author, and a speaker talking about trauma as well. And she's gonna share expertise and experience with us. And Dr. April, she specialized in domestic violence and rape in churches, and she has a master, and she's studying research on that. And you'll see that it's quite tragic what's happening in an area where we think, in an environment where we think we're safe, we're actually not safe. So if you can stay with me, then it's going to be amazing just to understand what's going on. And they're all based in the US, so most of their cases are going to be based on the US, a situation. But I think it's a global issue. So don't go anywhere, and come and learn from them, because they have not only the life experience but also the knowledge and the expertise to see how things can be addressed and how people can be healed from those violence. So that's all for today. And for this show, not for today, because I'm coming back in an hour. And thank you so much, Dai, for being with us and for bringing your positive energy and your knowledge with us, to us, and to the audience. And I know that they've all been very happy, and Raymond from New York is saying amazing, amazing, interview. And we have, Eva as well from South Africa, who joined in the middle, and she's also, got a lot from you. And I'm pretty sure, I hope you've been able to take notes, but most importantly, connect with Dai on all the platform. You can't miss him. He has a very unique name, so you'll be able to find him again. So thank you so much, Dai. Enjoy, the rest of your day, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And I'll get to connect with you anyway after the show. So take care, and yeah, so see you in a bit.
Bye.
Bye.